Back on the Sportsmax Zone, we're switching to cricket now, and it was another tough day for the West Indies at the office against touring England. England taking firm control on the second Apex Test at Kensington Oval on Thursday. At stumps, the West Indies were 71 for 1 to trail by 436 runs, with Shamar Brooks and captain Craig Brathwaite at the crease on 31 and 28 respectively. Earlier in the day, the visitors declared their first innings on 507 for 9, led by skipper Joe Root, who made 153. Ben Stokes struck 120 off 128 balls. Veerasamy Permaul took 3 for 126 for the West Indies. Cardigan Connor joins us now on the Sportsmax Zone to review what happened today at Kensington Oval. Cardi, coming into today's play, the England team were already in control, tightened their grip with a huge first innings total. The West Indies a little resilient towards the back end of the day's play. Your thoughts on how the game is poised?
Well, obviously, I think England have found themselves in a pretty good position. I think any team that wins the toss these days will prefer to bat, and that's what England did. And it's not just batting, but making sure you bat well. And to be able to declare on the first innings says that you're quite happy with the foundation that was laid. On the other hand, for the West Indies, they toiled yesterday and again today. And I think it's important for them that a partnership, again, was built by Shamar Brooks and by Craig Brathwaite, because losing a couple more wickets tonight would have definitely put the West Indies under a lot of pressure.
Yeah, before we assess the probabilities for the West Indies in their batting come day 3 tomorrow, a quick comment on Ben Stokes, who wasn't too impressive in the Ashes against the Aussies, of course, but looking to get himself some form.
Well, obviously, I think with someone like Ben Stokes being out for a while for different reasons, I think he had some challenges mentally in the fact that he had some issues with his dad was very ill in New Zealand. And then, of course, the injury that he was dealing with. He was underprepared against Australia, and you cannot really afford to have that going your way. But again, what you'll say is that in the first test, he showed some signs there. And of course, today he went out and played tremendously. And that is the approach that England should have taken, in the sense that it's not just batting for a long time, but scoring quickly as well. And I think that, again, is what worked very much in England's favor. And again, as I said, the class of batsman that Stokes is, he's a match winner, and he's playing that way.
Definitely, Cardigan. And you know, yesterday we had a long discussion with our international cricket commentator, Fazir Mohammed, and we were talking about the conditions that were prepared and, you know, how it affected both teams. I'd love to hear your assessment.
Well, again, I think the first test, it did not endear us to attractive cricket. It was grinding cricket. And again, I think even in this match as well, for the faster bowlers especially, it was very tough. You expect in the first couple of days that the faster bowlers would be the ones that will do most of the work, the hard yards, as they would say. But again, it seemed very much as if the pitches are prepared more or less batsman friendly. And of course, what happens in the game of cricket over the next 3 days will determine whether or not the West Indies, who are on the back foot at the moment, whether they're physically and mentally tough enough to survive over that period of time.
Yes, speaking about survive, we lost a wicket earlier. A bit unfortunate, but it also brings into the discussion, you know, John Campbell, again, getting the opportunity, failing to capitalize on it.
Well, yes, I think that's a challenge that he obviously has to deal with. I think he's a decent player, but there are a number of decent players around. The ones you're really looking for are the ones that knows how to take advantage of the opportunities and cement their places. And I'm afraid he's not doing himself a great deal of favors at the moment.
Yeah, George?
Cardi, the way the West Indies batted in the first test, I remain peeved by the approach to the innings. I really felt the first innings could have benefited from a change of gear, and perhaps we'd have set ourselves up for a different finish, perhaps a grandstand finish of whatever kind. I say that to say, now that we are 1 wicket down, we have the whole day on Friday ahead of us. how do you think the approach to the chase of the first inning score should be? Should it be measured, or should we look to lift the tempo perhaps after lunch somewhere there? What would you prescribe for the approach?
Well, I think for West Indies, they have to be positive. At this early stage in the game, I don't believe that you have to go there and try to just bat for survival. I think that was part of the challenge in the first test. I think what West Indies have to look to do is to still put some pressure on England, and the best way to do that is to go out and get as close to England's score, by within the next day and a half or so. So at least then it means that England still have to bat themselves in the second innings to save the game. But if the West Indies adopt a negative or defensive approach, it means England will look to throw everything at them. They just have to stay positive, because that is the nature of whether it's test matches or one-day internationals. It is still about playing positive cricket.
Do we have the skill to do that, though, Cardi? And here's why I ask. If you look at the traditional big names in Test cricket, each of those teams have about 3 or 4 batsmen who would either walk into the other team's strongest 11s or be knocking at the door to get in. We don't have that. So is it a situation of skill where we lack the batsmen to be able to change the tempo in a game, force the fielding captain to make decisions that he wouldn't normally have to make? So is it that we're expecting too much to expect batsmen of limited skill and confidence to really lift the tempo on an innings and give us put us in the position that we desire?
I think that's a very good point, but we play so many one-day internationals and T20s, so it tells me that you must practice those skills, and I believe that the West Indian players have got the skills. It is whether or not they've got the confidence to bat in that manner. Now, you cannot afford, I think, going into even test matches with the attitude of afraid to lose. When you start doing that, it's, again, as I said, it becomes ultra-defensive. But the idea is it's a mind game as well. Go out and be positive. I'm not saying just go and play across the line. But if you spend an hour and a half at the crease, then instead of being, looking to block delivery for survival, you then look to stroke it a lot more. And again, that's what West Indies cricket, that's what we were used to. And it wasn't about calypso cricket. It was just that our players played with a great deal of confidence. We saw what Australia has done when they were a dominating team. We see what New Zealand is doing. So all India as well. All the top teams these days play positive cricket. Right now, England themselves are trying to rebuild. Having got beaten 4-0 by Australia, they're now in a zone where they cannot afford to lose to the West Indies. But on the other hand, they cannot afford to go back to England with a 0-0 in the series. So it endears to both sides to play positive cricket.
But Cardi, in the same way that Ben Stokes came and raised and turned up the thermostat on the innings, 120, 128 balls, who's our Ben Stokes in this lineup?
Blackwood, Bonner. Bonner is had some runs. Also, well, in fact, the whole team. I think they just have to go out there with that approach that they've got the ability to stroke the ball and give themselves more confidence to go into the next test match. Because that is the whole idea, is to play positive cricket.
Let me hear you on the bowlers, though, because people love to see, of course, bowlers, the faster bowlers operating on a bouncy track. They love to see these spinners operating on a track that's conducive to whatever kind of spin that they're bowling. But I find that watching bowlers on a dead pitch or one that is batting friendly also tells me a lot about the skill of a bowler. Kemar Roach is a known quantity. Jason has been around long enough. He's a known quantity as well. But I want you to run the rule over how you saw Jayden Seales approach bowling on this kind of surface. And, of course, Parmal, who doesn't have much experience at this level, how do you assess what he managed to do in the conditions? Are you positive based on how both men went about their work on a pitch that is not the best?
Well, I'm very much impressed with Seales. I like his approach. Physically, he looks the type. He's got an easy action, a strong action. And again, when you look, he keeps the seam up. and he's going to be a pretty good bowler. He's going to be a pretty good bowler. I think right now, as a youngster, he shows a lot of heart and determination. And again, I must say that the fact that he can swing the ball in, swing it out, so it tells me that as he travels and plays overseas as well, where there are pitches that will obviously look to favor him a lot more, then that's the making of a future star for West Indies cricket. I know it's very young stage to talk about being a star, but it is important that what you see at this early stage, that he's a strong fast bowler and against one who's got the ability to move the ball in and out, and with that, that's the foundation for a good future.
Yeah, talk to me about Pramod now. How did you see him? What was he trying to do in the conditions? Did you see a thinking bowler, someone who belongs at this level?
Well, again, what you find that in the first 2 days of a test match, it is tough for the spinners to be able to get purchase off the pitch if the pitch is not a spinning pitch. By the fourth and fifth day, that's when the spinners tend to play more of a positive role, coming to their own. But in the meantime, his role really was to bowl as many overs as he possibly could to help the faster bowlers, especially after the effects of the new ball was gone. And I thought he's done pretty well. I mean, considering that for someone who hasn't had a great deal of test match cricket, he's done pretty well. I thought he did well for his team. And again, as I said, the first couple of days was pretty much set up to be more for the batsmen. But again, the West Indies did not allow England, or the bowlers, West Indian bowlers, did not allow England to really run away with the game.
Okay, stay with us, Carly, because we're staying with cricket and we're going to talk now about the West Indies women who are currently locked in battle with Bangladesh in their Women's World Cup fixture at the Bay Oval in New Zealand. Bangladesh won the toss and asked the West Indies to take first strike. And moments ago, the West Indies were 12 without loss of 3.5 overs. This is the first time that these two teams are meeting in an ODI. And Cardi, you have already seen the West Indies women, 2 wins and 2 losses. 2 very, very good wins, 2 disappointing losses as well. A win today will push them 3rd in the table. What are your thoughts on their efforts so far and their prospects for this tournament?
Well, you called it. They showed a lot of fight in the 2 games that they played. And for the West Indies to get to the semis, these are 2 teams, some of the top teams that they had to beat. New Zealand, who would have started one of the favorites, along with South Africa and Australia, of course, and also England. So you put them all in a batch. You thought that those 4 would actually be the ones that are likely to go through. But then very disappointing loss to India. I didn't expect the West Indies to go through the tournament undefeated, but if you're going to lose, the whole point in a bunched up system where you've got a number of teams that there's not much to choose between them, if you're going to lose, you can't afford to have your run rate be so drastically in the negative. And that's been the problem, again, for the West Indies. The loss to India definitely hurt in a big way.
Yeah. The results that they had against New Zealand and England were, for most people, surprising results. And there are signs in the team's performance of improvement. And a lot has been, well, Courtney Walsh, the new head coach, has been credited with doing something right to get this team back in the direction that we had seen them, maybe 6 years ago when they won the T20 World Cup. Your thoughts on the performance of the team under head coach Walsh as against what we had seen from them in recent years, which was pretty underperforming. That was the title or the label that we gave to their efforts.
Well, I think what you find is that someone like Courtney Walsh will be inspirational, because anybody who's interested in cricket, whether in the Caribbean, but especially in the Caribbean, because he represented us, that in the dressing room, if he asks something of you, you go that extra mile, because you'd have seen him do it himself. He's not asking you something that he didn't do. The talent is there. I mean, because you find that worldwide, a number of our players. They are in great demand in Australia, New Zealand, England. So the talent is definitely there. What is vitally important is the consistency. And again, having wins against New Zealand and England, whether or not they became a little bit lackadaisical and feeling that, all right, we beat these two teams that where we started as underdogs, that the rest is going to fall in place for us. So those two defeats that they suffer, consecutive defeats, hopefully will work in their favor. I believe they will beat Bangladesh. They also should start as favorites against Pakistan. If the West Indies can win both of those games, they still can control their own destiny. I think New Zealand and England will cancel out each other. The other challenge, obviously, would be India as well. So I think for the West Indies, they still have to go out there, first of all, to win. And that's the key. I think just winning 2 out of the 3, and they've got a good chance of actually qualifying. And
a quick comment, Cardi, on the team's fitness, because I think when the team was underperforming a couple of years ago, one of the points made was that the girls didn't look fit enough. They appear a lot fitter now than they did last year and the year before. I know you place a lot of emphasis on fitness, Cardi, even though long after retirement you appear to be in very good physical shape. How much do you think physical fitness has contributed to the team performing better now than they did before?
Well, Lance, you know that every team worldwide, successful team or individual successful, has to be physically fit, because the physical and the mental goes together as well. That inner confidence that you've worked hard enough that you deserve to get the results. And it also sends a message as well to the opposition, because again, when they look at you and they think, well, all right, these guys really want it, then they're proving it by the way they look and the work ethics. So if I want it badly enough, I will show you, that this is where it's at.
Cardi, thank you very much for talking to us, brother. We'll be in touch.
Lance, always a pleasure. Take care. To you and George and the guys. Take care.
Cardigan Connor there, former Hampshire seamer for many years in English county cricket, talking to us out of Anguilla. We go to break. We'll be back with more on The Zone after this.